The Raiders front office has known to make a lot of incompetent decisions. But most recently, there's been a lot of optimism going on, from the hiring of Coach Kubiak to the free agency of 2026. And in this video, I wanted to talk about a lot of decisions that were made in most recent years to determine whether that optimism is warranted. Now, we got to start somewhere, right? And I was trying to figure out where we should start to really start this track of whether they've been making competent decisions or incompetent decisions. And I decided to start with Tom Brady. Right now, when Tom Brady was first brought on, a lot of people in Raider Nation didn't like it for whatever reason, right? In my opinion, Tom Brady's somebody that he excels in everything he does, right? Tom Brady has the Midas touch. Everything he does turns to gold. Tom Brady was brought on as a minority owner on October 15th of 2024, and I'm going to say that move specifically proved competency, right? Mark Davis tried to do it with John Gruden, which I did like the pick, but that didn't turn out as well. And when you think about it, bringing in a coach to be that football guy, it's really not a good idea, right? Coaches don't stay forever, right? You're here for 8 years, 10 years, whatever, but eventually you will leave, and then that football guy is going to have to be replaced, right? But bringing in Tom Brady, somebody that's done it, done it for years, for centuries, right? And has been the best ever since he touched the league. That was the smartest move that Mark Davis could have ever done, right? There's nobody that I could think of till this day that would have been a better move, right? So bringing in Tom Brady, somebody that knows what it's supposed to look like, that was a great move, right? So I'm gonna give a point towards competence, right? Because we can all agree now that it was a great move. Right now, the time that Brady was brought on, Antonio Pierce was the head coach during that time. Now, Antonio Pierce was fired on January 7th, 2025. Now, I'm not going to say that firing him was a good move or a bad move. I think that hiring him in the first place was a bad move. So I can't really say that firing him is a good move, because you never should have done it in the first place, right? So AP was fired on the 7th, January 7th. And then at that time, Ben Johnson was already known to be looking for a head coach job, but he was in playoffs at this time. So, of course, everybody had to wait. Now, Brady, everybody knew Brady wanted him, but everybody also knew that Ben Johnson didn't want to coach for the Raiders. That was a well-known fact, right? But out of respect for Brady, Ben Johnson agreed to take the interview. Now, the thing that I don't agree with is putting all your eggs in one basket, right? It doesn't matter what we're talking about. You should never put all your eggs in one basket. That will always prove to be the worst decision ever, right? Nobody's saying that you can't go all in for this dude. Well, I guess that would pretty much what means all in, but it proved to be the wrong move. It proved to be incompetent. Now, going for him isn't what I would call incompetence. I would say putting all your eggs in one basket is what was incompetent, right? And that's what Brady did, even knowing that he didn't want to coach for the Raiders, right? So I got to give a point towards incompetence. By far, even to this day, we all know what it was, right? So at that time, boom, go figure, the Raiders were scrambling for a head coach, scrambling for a staff, everything, right? So Pete Carroll was hired January 24th, 2025. And this move specifically, now anybody can say, oh yeah, in hindsight, it was a horrible move. But at the end of the day, you have to hire somebody, right? And seeing that everybody was pretty much hired and you went for Ben Johnson, knowing that, you know what I mean? Like, I can't really call this move incompetence, because at the end of the day, you have to do something, right? Hiring Pete Carroll was more of sort of a domino effect of Ben Johnson, which I already called incompetence, right? So I can't really double up on it. It's something that it just happened because of that, right? So that's sort of like it is what it is, right? Now, after Pete Carroll was hired on January 24th, John Spytek was hired on January 22nd. And then Pete Carroll was hired on January 24th, right? Now, Spytek, today we all call Spytek the GOAT. At the time that he was hired, it was kind of like a neutral move. Like, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad. It was something that's just like, hey, that's Brady's guy. We'll see how it works out, right? Now, fast forward to free agency of 2025, right? Free agency always starts in March. A lot of guys left. Now, I don't know if people were offered contracts. I don't know any of that. All I know is that a bunch of guys left, and a bunch of those guys were starters, right? Specifically on the defensive side. So the Raiders lost a lot of players to free agency. Now, it's not it's not the fact that they lost players, it's the fact that nothing was done after, right? It's kind of like it's both of them put together, right? You can bring them back if you want to, but if you lose these guys, you have to have a plan to replace the talent, right? If not all the way, at least halfway, right? And that wasn't done. So I'm going to say for that proved incompetence, right? At this point, it's 2-1, proving that the front office is still acting with incompetence, doing stupid things, right? Free agency, right? March, and then the draft, April. 2025 draft, you can't really determine at this point. I did think that taking a running back at 6 was an incompetent move, only for one reason, right? The success of the running back position in general is reliant on the offensive line. It always has been, it always will be. That's why Saquon got all them yards once he went to Philadelphia, right? Because the O line that he was running behind. It's the same thing for everybody, right? Now, what eventually made it somewhat worth it is because he traded back in the second and ended up getting 2 offensive linemen in the 3rd round, right? Now, that makes it sort of worth it, right? And I like Charles Grant. I liked Charles Grant before the draft. Caleb Rogers, once he was drafted, I watched some of his tape from college. It's good, right? He has good hand placement. He has a good base, a strong base, and he's very strong, right? He doesn't get pushed back. He can deal with power, but he can also move, right? That's very important. So I think that Caleb Rogers, that was a good pick, but you can't put a grade on the draft as of right now, right? I can't determine whether it's competent, incompetent, and all that. So we just gonna say it's neutral, right? It's still 2-1, proving incompetence at this point, right? So we go through the season. Obviously, Chip Kelly's fired in the middle of the season, right? November 23rd, 2025. Boom, Chip Kelly's fired. Now everybody's saying, "Oh, well, you should have fired the son." At this point in time, right? In November, early December of 2025, you really get to a point to where it's like it really doesn't matter who you fire, right? Because everybody's gone, right? Your mama, your grandkids, everybody up out of here. So at that point, who you fire, who you keep really doesn't matter, right? Because all y'all is up out of here after the season, right? So Chip Kelly's gone November 23rd. And then obviously Pete Carroll's fired January 5th, 2026, right? Now, Pete Carroll as well. The firing of Pete Carroll, I'm not gonna say it's competent. I'm not gonna say it's incompetent because, like I said in the first place, he never should have been hired, right? That whole sequence of events, it should have never happened because you never should have put all your eggs in one basket, right? Now, granted, Brady had just was brought on board, right? So you got to get situated. You got to figure things out, right? You don't just jump in and hit it off right away. So he made some bad decisions, but ended up cleaning it up, right? So he was fired January 5th, and then Kubiak. Obviously, they went through the whole process. There was a lot of coaches. There was a lot of candidates that they were looking at, right? One of them being Clint Kubiak. I think that the process overall of looking for a head coach, I think they went about it the right way. Now, they ended up hiring Clint Kubiak on February 9th of 2026. The process of looking for a head coach and then also landing on Clint Kubiak, that has to be a competent move. It's the best move that they could have ever made, right? There's no candidate out there that was better than Clint Kubiak. And it was just overall the best decision. But one thing that they didn't do that they did before was put all their eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? Like, they really had some real candidates there, right? The defensive coordinator from Carolina, who everybody's saying he's probably the next one to get a head coaching job, right? Robert Saleh, I like Saleh, although he didn't even interview, right? But there was a lot of good candidates that they could work through, right? And they went about it the right way, right? So hiring Clint Kubiak, man, obviously very competent decision. You go through, like I said, free agency of every year starts in March. Now, this free agency, man, I think this free agency is what put this front office ahead, right? Because when Kubiak was hired, you're really neck and neck in making bad decisions, making good decisions. But adding to that with free agency, with correcting your mistake from 2025 free agency, adding to the O-line, right? The 2 linebackers, right? I think the Kwity Paye and the Kobe Dean, the signing of those 2 is underrated, right? It's not just the type of players that they are, it's the position that they play, right? If you're going to target the best of the best at any given position, you want to target the positions that don't pay that much, right? Running back, linebacker, safety, right? If you target a D end and a wide receiver, bro, that's like over 100 million, right? Just, bro, for one person, over 100, right? And then you bring two. So to target two great players at a position that doesn't cost that much, man, that was a sneaky good move that I don't think he's getting a lot of credit for, right? Now, of course, you paid a lot for Linderbaum, which, I mean, the Raiders have had a horrible O-line for the longest, right? So at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do, especially when there's a high chance that you're going to draft your franchise quarterback, right? And this is a point that I made since the season ended, right? You cannot draft Mendoza if you do not fix the O-line in free agency, right? You can't wait to get to the draft and say, oh, man, I hope the O-line that we want lands, right? You can't do that. You got to do what you need to do in free agency and then clean it up in the draft, right? So free agency was a big hit, man. That proved competency. So, and then fast forward to the draft. Obviously, they land the franchise quarterback. They had a pretty good draft. After that, I'm not really going to sit here and say, yeah, they had a good draft. Let's just say it was competent. Nah, it's the same thing as last draft. Although I do like the draft, we got to sit here and wait and see how everything plays out, right? Because some of these guys, I think Crawford is going to be really big, right? But you can't say that now, right? You have to kind of just wait and see, right? But great free agency, great draft. At this point, it's 3-2, right? 3 points for competence, 2 points for incompetence. Now, granted, it's only been pretty much a year, maybe a year and a half of decisions that we went through, but so far it's looking good right now. 3-2 might not, seem too good on face value, but majority of the competent decisions have been most recently, right? And the incompetent decisions were pretty much a year ago, right? So I think that you definitely have to take that in consideration. It's not really about the mistakes that you make. It's about learning from those mistakes and correcting those mistakes, which they've been doing in most recent months, right? So I do think that the optimism is warranted. I know a lot of fans out there, they think that, they don't want to get too excited because they just don't want to be disappointed, man. But I hope that this video was able to help you see that they're making all the right decisions, right? And, all of the stuff that they did in the past, right, they pretty much corrected the mistakes, and that's what you want to see, right? Now, I do think that they're going to still make mistakes. That's just how life is. But I think that we have a good front office, a good coaching staff to be able to learn from those mistakes and continue on stacking those good decisions, right? So I'm excited for this season. I think they've done a lot of great things in the most recent months, recent weeks, man, and I'm excited for the season. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm about to make a video on Malik Benson, breaking down some of his film, talking about strengths, talking about weaknesses, man, so stay tuned for that video, man. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. My name's Steady, man. I'll catch y'all on the next one.